Welcome, everyone. It is another great episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News. We are the news division of United Network. We're also part of CARE, the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. And our mission is to bring you the real news. And we release a lot of content throughout the week that includes incredible stories told through the eyes of our field messengers, our news team. We compile some more in-depth news coverage for you. These may be some headlines that you've seen online, but we go a little bit further in depth. And we also check in with Kim Gogan, who is part of the Global Intelligence Agency. She's the head of the GIA. And she tells us what's really going on in this incredible battle that we find ourselves in, that many of us choose to be part of, this incredible battle of good versus evil that is unfolding on our planet right now. So if you're wondering what all the chaos is about, there you go. If you want more information about who we are, visit our website, unitednetwork.earth. What you're listening right now to, this is a week in review podcast. So I go through the stories that we've covered over the last week. It's been a busy week, and we're going to get you caught up. So this is great if you guys may have missed some of the information that we put out throughout the week, or if you would like to share UNN with other people. And I would highly encourage you guys to do that, because when we put out our content initially through our app, it is only available to our members for the first week. And then after that, we do release it on YouTube and Rumble to everyone else. But if you want instant access, then you need to become a member. So if you want to share UNN, this is a great way to do it. Send them one of these episodes, and at least I'll show them what we've been talking about for the last week, right? And with any content that you consume, all right, whether it's UNN, something on TikTok, for those of you on TikTok, is there anyone left on TikTok? I feel like, even my daughters are like, TikTok, that was so 2025. Anyway, YouTube, Instagram, whatever you're on, think critically about the content you're consuming. We don't believe that news is a passive sport anymore. You're not just supposed to sit there like zombies and just let information just come into your brain. You need to think critically about the information. So many times, that's kind of what we've done in the past, is we've just been, this person has a show. They must be important. They're on TV. Trust me, I've seen the hiring processes behind the scenes. I was part of that whole world for a while. There's nothing special about those people. And a lot of times they're just doing what management told them to do, okay? Or told them to say or not to say, right? They say the whole world is a stage. And that's what they're talking about. A lot of this is just scripted stuff. You see that on social media. It's like, why do all of the conservative commentators right now, why are they saying literally the exact same thing in their posts? Same thing for the other side, right? It doesn't matter what side you're on. This is a war to get people to fight each other, so we are not focused on the bigger picture. So if you are conservative, liberals are not your enemy. If you're liberal, conservatives are not your enemy. And there's a lot of people in between who said we had to have two sides. But they love this whole black and white game, right? But you're smarter than that because you're listening to this podcast. So when you figure stuff like that out, share it with the people that you love, because this will start to click. I know a lot of us feel like we've been doing this a while and no one's listening, but I'm telling you, structures are being brought down in the background, very important structures that have been playing on loop for a very long time. And this is what's got us into this daze, right? That's why we were just sitting down and all the news, and just allow it come into our brains. We're not doing that anymore. We're thinking for ourselves. So when you share things that you've learned, it really does help people think. And what they do with the information beyond that, that's up to them. But at least you did your job, right? As far as announcements, before we get into our stories here, I just want to send out a special thank you to Calen, who is another messenger with me, who does the intros for the field messenger reports on the news. And you guys know, because I've been doing these rundown reports kind of live while I was on vacation. It was a working vacation, but it still allowed me to get out of my house, do some fun things with my family. I was still writing and doing things like that, but I didn't have all my camera equipment with me. So I asked Calen to fill in and do some on-camera stuff for me, so I didn't have to drag all that stuff around, and he did, and I'm very appreciative of that. And so is the airport, so I didn't have to send all of that camera equipment through the airport. My wallet, thanks you, Calen. Thank you. He did a really good job, and I just really appreciate being able to count on him. All right, so let's get to the stories this week. Here's the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. All right, let's focus on our field messenger reports. And our field messengers, you guys, they are everyday people just like you, and they see stuff going on in their community. They have these smartphones, and they say, hey, I can show the world what's really going on. This is our way of eliminating the middleman, right? You don't need correspondents to show up in your community and, have their own narrative about whatever's going on. You can show us, right? And then you send us your content. We've got a production team that puts everything together for you. And voila, you have a news story. So if you want more information on becoming a field messenger and all the support that we can give you guys, there's meetings every week. We've got a Telegram group that you guys can ask questions in. That information is on the website. Just go there, and there's a section for field messengers, and you can check it out. All right, Dorothy out of Montana does a follow-up on a story she covered about oil refineries in her area. And this is something we've been touching on with the GIA report. And you've been seeing the effects of this on the news, right? But we have this issue in Iran, right, with the Strait of Hormuz, and it's closed, it's open, it's, every day, every hour, it seems like we're getting a different explanation of what's going on over there. But what we can see, at least here in the U.S., according to Dorothy, is various oil refineries are just not refining oil. So she's in the Billings, Montana area, and she talks about 3 different refineries in her area where they usually process around 60,000 barrels of crude oil a day. And she's going there and not much is going on. Okay, so this raises a lot of questions about what's really going on with our fuel supply, the prices. I don't know what it's like in your area now. It's pretty moderate here in San Diego, where I'm from, where I live right now, but it was really high, right? So the prices are like all over the place. And you got to wonder, okay, well, we here in the US, we do have oil, right? We can bring up oil out of the ground. It does need to be refined. So why aren't we refining it? So when Dorothy was at some of these refineries, and like I said, this is a follow-up report, so she's been, really going behind the scenes and checking this stuff out for us. She went a few different times, and she said one of the times there seemed to be like a slight flare-up, like you could kind of see maybe some smoke or fire, something going on, possibly with one of these refineries, and there was a chemical smell. But then when she went back, it wasn't there, right? So this is very inconsistent, which makes you wonder, if we can bring up oil out of the ground, why are we not refining it? And why are we making ourselves more reliant on exported oil, right? Inquiring minds want to know. All right, Mohammed out of Cameroon takes us to a place where they had a beautiful prayer ceremony going on. A large crowd gathered at Japama Stadium in Cameroon, and this was to mark the end of Ramadan. And I think he said between 150,000 and 200,000 people were there. Lots of people that were either sitting or kneeling. They came together for prayers and celebrations. So according to Muhammad, this is a prayer to end fasting for the month of Ramadan. And for me, it's just a very interesting look at how different cultures, different religions work, right? I'm from a Christian background, and we never did anything like this. So again, it's about understanding each other and where we're all coming from. So thank you, Mohammed, for that report. Monica out of Romania takes us to a culinary art competition, which made me very, very hungry. when I was watching the report. So these ladies came together to showcase their skills. Of course, they were celebrating their tradition as well. I wish I could remember some of the names of these dishes. I can tell you baklava was one of them because that was one that I was like, oh, I didn't even know it was spelled that way. I feel like baklava is one of those things can be spelled like a million different ways depending on what culture, what tradition, right? You're from. And so there were pastries, there were savory dishes, just a whole bunch of things. And it was just a nice celebration. And like I said, made me very, very hungry. I probably should have had dinner before watching that. All right, Ruth and Keiki, and they are out of California. They are telling us more about a forest enrichment program. They call it the Wise Roots Collective. It is out of Oakland Hills in California. And this is primarily a program for homeschooled children. It blends Waldorf and Montessori methods, focusing on nature, creativity, and hands-on learning. And they said it was about to 5 to 8-year-olds, so it's a very specific group of people. And it's a blend of different curriculums, which is one of the takeaways that I had. So I homeschool. I've got 4 kids. My older 2 kids, my boys, they go to traditional school. There was no way I was going to stop them from doing that. That's just kind of their background, and they didn't want to change things, and that's where their friends go to school. So I pick my battles wisely. But my daughters, my twin girls, are homeschooled. This is our 2nd year doing homeschooling. I love these kind of programs. I wish they were closer to where I'm at in Southern California, but this is beautiful. And I love that they're blending curriculums because when you say you're homeschooling your child, there's like this kind of the question that a lot of people ask is, well, what curriculum are you using? It can get very kind of judgy. And I love that they're just throwing curriculum just like, hey, it's a blend. It's a blend of this. We're throwing in our own stuff as well. We're being guided by nature and source. And I think that's beautiful. That's what I do with my girls. And I just loved it. So kudos to, I think Keiki was heading that program up, and her partner. So awesome program, guys. Alice from Nigeria shows us all about beekeeping in his area. And this was very interesting for me. We've seen a lot of different stories on how people keep their bees and tips and things like that. This is very different in his area of Nigeria. What would you call them? The hives, okay, that they have made or, created, these crates and things that they have the bees in. They are looks like it's kind of in a little forest. It's very, very natural. And anytime I've seen it here in the U.S., it's been more structured in a specific area, and all the bees are there. This is more natural. It's like they have different locations in a forest for these bees, which I thought was really interesting. And he says he works with billions of bees, which I don't doubt, Very interesting how they do it over there. And interesting for us to be able to see that and possibly use that in what we're doing, in our areas as well. All right, Helen out of Australia. Helen is a great resource for anything having to do with nature, but also growing things. And this time she's talking about seeds. She's talking about heritage and heirloom seeds and the importance of them, right? You don't really want genetically modified counterparts, GMOs, right? There's this whole world of seeding, I'll just call it, that I was unaware of, that the more, and I think I've talked about this on the rundown before. You know how you go to the grocery store and they've got those packets of seeds and they're like, here, buy these seeds. I guarantee all of those are genetically modified, so skip it. Don't even think about it. But if you are able to get these heritage heirloom seeds, those that's the juicy stuff. That's the good stuff, right? And she talks about how she's able to reseed every year and how it's just a very natural process, right? That the seeds naturally drop from the plants and then they reseed themselves. Like this, I'm not saying that gardening can't be challenging, okay? But I feel like a lot of times we're going against the grain, to use an American expression. And it doesn't have to be as difficult, I don't think. And I appreciate Helen for that reminder. All right, we had a field messenger report out of Japan that was a just-in report for us. I thought this was very interesting. So the field messenger was talking about how the Iran war has disrupted oil imports in her area. This has caused a lot of shortages in petroleum-based materials, and this is because Japan relies heavily on oil shipped through the Strait of Hormuz. It was a crazy percentage. I can't remember the exact, I think it was like 90% or something crazy like that. So their supply chains are very much impacted. She said they are seeing shortages, everything from construction materials to everyday goods, packaging. Some manufacturers aren't able to continue production. And costs, those are going up. They're surging. Incomes are declining. So not a great situation over in Japan, but we appreciate that perspective, right? Because this is affecting all countries a little bit differently. All right, and I think that was on Friday that report came out, if you guys want to check it out. Emma out of Spain takes us to Carnival, which if you're going to celebrate Carnival, what a beautiful place to do it on an island, right? So she's at Fuerteventura, Spain. And I think this is the second report that she's done. She did a previous report about how youth get involved. And I felt like this story focused more on ways that women of all ages could get involved, because she said this year Latin America was the theme for it. So they had these parades and these floats and all these street activities going on. But there seemed to be ways that older women were being acknowledged, right? And they were appearing on these floats. And, it's just a good reminder. And I really do appreciate this, that we should all be able to participate in this. They also had like this, what would you call it? Not a train, but maybe like a little train bus type thing that was available to take older people around to kind of show them the sights. I think all of this is really important, right? You really want these kind of events to be family friendly. It was a great reminder. Paige, who was visiting France, takes us to this jousting tournament, but this is no ordinary jousting tournament because this is on water. And I got the feeling that this was kind of all for show, right? They had costumes and things like that. So, they were kind of reliving the ancient days, right? But they had these boats and they were divided up, men and women. And I think the men and women had different colors. Like one was red, one was blue. So you had these people rowing, let's just say all these women rowing in the boat. And then they had a woman at the end, and those would do the jousting. So it was really kind of one-on-one jousting, but through women who were rowing these boats. So it was a lot of fun. Most of the time, people got knocked into the water, and that's really fun to watch too. So it's a little piece of history for us. And Kathleen out of Tennessee talks more about plants, right? So we kind of learned a little bit more about seeds with Helen out of Australia. Now Kathleen is telling us more about cultivating plants, specifically from last season's growth. She says this is a practical, it's a rewarding process. She shows us a lot of examples about how she's done that in her own garden and how the plants have grown. She shares some tips and tricks, which I'm not going to give it all away. You're going to have to watch the report. She does have a greenhouse that she uses at times. I think we need to bring back greenhouses. I think most of our homes should probably have some form of greenhouse, don't you think? And this was a good reminder of that. So Kathleen, thank you for showing us how to cultivate plant life season after season. Now, here are the stories that the news team and I worked on for you guys this week, starting in South Africa. There is a worsening water crisis, and it is spiraling beyond environmental challenges. It's become this complex web of crime, corruption, and failing infrastructure. As unreliable municipal systems leave millions without consistent access, get this, illegal water mafias have stepped in, selling water at steep prices to those who are in need, especially in poor and rural communities.
When there is a water crisis, a water mafia steps in, and sometimes they even create the crisis themselves. Pipes get sabotaged, taps run dry, and municipalities are forced to hire private water tankers at exorbitant fees. And the emergency? It is worth hundreds of millions of rands, the type of money that you and me cannot even comprehend.
Aging infrastructure, mismanagement, and even sabotage have deepened the crisis, while health risks and environmental damage continue to grow. Ultimately, the issue reflects deeper governance failures, where long-term solutions depend on accountability, investment, and restoring equitable access to a basic human right. Well, your favorite chocolate bar may not be what it used to be, as cocoa prices surge due to climate impacts in West Africa. Companies quietly adjusted by shrinking sizes, tweaking recipes, and even using substitutes, all while keeping labels largely unchanged.
They're taking chocolate out of chocolate. They're taking the chocolate out of the chocolate bar and calling it a chocolate bar. Brad Reese's, the Reese's family member, bought a bag of Reese's during Valentine's Day and bit into one of them and had to spit it out because he said it didn't taste like it's supposed to. In the 70 years of his life, it's never tasted like that, and he's never had to spit it out. And then he looked at the label, and it said that less than 2% of this has chocolate in it, cacao. I would love to tell you that Hershey Company is trying to turn over a new leaf and is trying to turn to alternative forms so that they don't have to lean into the child and forced labor to get their chocolate. But in reality, it's because of profit margins.
While cocoa costs have started to ease, consumers are still feeling the effects through higher prices and altered ingredients. With ongoing challenges like climate instability, labor shortages, and market swings, the future of chocolate remains uncertain, and the changes on store shelves may be here to stay. In Japan, voluntary sterilization sits in a complicated space, legally allowed but difficult to access due to strict regulations, cultural expectations, and cautious medical practices. Rooted in a history tied to the former eugenic protection law, today's system still places significant barriers on women seeking permanent birth control, sparking ongoing debates about bodily autonomy and rights. Here is one woman who's been impacted by this.
Everybody expected me to have baby in the future, and I hated it. I just wanted to remove my capability of pregnancy from my own body. So why do they decide about my body? It's not about the people who don't want to have baby, but it's about every single woman. It's about abortion. It's about contraception. The situation is awful. We are under pressure of having baby, and it's getting bigger and bigger due to the population decline in Japan.
While courts have stopped short of declaring these restrictions unconstitutional, growing public pressure and legal challenges signal a shift as more women push back against longstanding norms and demand greater control over their reproductive choices. Facial recognition technology has quietly moved from niche security use into everyday life, now embedded in devices like smart glasses and home cameras that can identify people without their knowledge or consent. As companies and law enforcement expand its use, entire neighborhoods and public spaces risk becoming constant surveillance zones. While the technology offers convenience and security benefits, it also raises serious concerns about privacy, accuracy, and misuse, especially as regulations struggle to keep pace. Now, one big example of this happened during the Super Bowl. Take a listen.
I don't have a Ring doorbell, but if I did, I'd be immediately removing it after watching this Super Bowl ad. Amazon used this year's Super Bowl to showcase a new Ring doorbell feature intended to help find lost pets using its network of doorbell cameras. However, instead of the warm fuzzies that were intended, the ad is terrifying, dystopian, and a reminder of what's to come, especially when you discover that it's set up for ICE to track immigrants. In the ad, they note that 10 million pets go missing every single year. The solution, as presented, is Search Party, an AI-driven feature that enlists all nearby Ring cameras to look for your lost pet. When a pet owner reports a missing dog in the Ring app, outdoor Ring cameras in the neighborhood automatically begin scanning their recent footage for an animal that matches the photo and description. This feature, as of today, is enabled by default. Amazon has touted this as a breakthrough in community-driven lost and found, but this is mass surveillance.
So, as you can tell, this issue is not just about the technology itself, but how invisible and normalized it's becoming in daily life. In Los Angeles, hospice care, meant to provide comfort and dignity at the end of life, has been exploited through widespread fraud schemes, with scammers enrolling unsuspecting patients and billing Medicare for services never provided. A massive surge in hospice providers, weak oversight, and lucrative payouts have fueled the problem, costing taxpayers millions while putting vulnerable patients at risk.
When a real patient gets falsely enrolled in hospice, their actual medical care stops. Medicare won't pay for treatment if you're already in hospice. So real sick people who could have gotten better, had their treatment pulled, had their pain medication withheld, while some fraud operation is billing for it.
So this is not a victimless crime, as a lot of people want to say, right? Although investigations and public exposure have prompted action, critics argue it came too late, leaving a system in need of serious reform to restore trust and protect those it's meant to serve. Dual citizenship. So this is becoming more common as people build lives across borders, offering benefits like expanded travel, work opportunities, and security, but it also comes with complex responsibilities. While countries like the US, Canada, and the UK allow it, others restrict or prohibit holding multiple nationalities, creating a patchwork of rules worldwide.
Here are 6 benefits to having dual citizenship. Number 1, travel. Being able to travel to each other's countries without a visa. Number 2, being allowed to vote in both countries. Number 3, being able to study in the education systems in both countries. Number 4, easier to get employment in both countries. Number 5, property ownership, which can also lead to investment opportunities. Number 6, cultural and family enrichment.
Recent trends, including citizenship by descent and investment programs, show how demand is growing, often driven by global instability. Still, dual nationals can face challenges like conflicting laws, tax obligations, and limits on rights, making it both an opportunity and a legal balancing act. Designer dogs. You know what these are? I have one. Sleeps in my bed every night. Like doodle mixes, that's what I have. May come with a reputation for being easygoing and family friendly, but new research suggests the reality is more complicated, and I can testify to that. A large study found these crossbreeds often show higher levels of fear and separation-related behaviors compared to their purebred parents, likely due to mixed genetics and a lack of standardized breeding traits.
When you cross 2 breeds with 2 different purposes, you could end up with the best of both breeds, or you could end up with the worst of both breeds, and you are likely to get something that you don't want. Doodles are not recognized breeds. They're designer mutts, which means that there is no breed standard and no way to hold doodle breeders accountable. Breed standards are not about elitism or snobbiness like some people think. They are carefully made rules to help dogs maximize their genetic potential.
While popularity has fueled demand and sometimes questionable breeding practices, experts emphasize that a dog's behavior ultimately depends on both genetics and their environment, making it essential for owners to focus on fit, training, and care rather than just assumptions about breed. The UK is reshaping its family court system with new laws and child-focused practices aimed at prioritizing children's safety and well-being. Changes under the Courts and Tribunals Bill remove the automatic assumption that children should have contact with both parents in cases involving potential harm, while new court models focus on faster decisions and giving children a stronger voice.
Section 1 of the Children Act. Any judge, lawyer, magistrate, CAFCAS officer, social worker, any professional will have the welfare of the child at the forefront of their mind. What is the Act, then? The ascertainable wishes and feelings of the child based on their age and understanding. If your child is old enough, they will be spoken to in a neutral environment by a professional to feed directly to the judge. Your opinion is not important, sorry. The physical, emotional and educational needs of the child, again, not yours, sorry. The likely effect of the child in any change of circumstances. The age, sex and background of the child, any harm they have suffered or are at risk of suffering, how capable the parents are at meeting the child's needs, and the range of powers available to the judge. The bottom line, if you find yourself in court with your children, focus on them, not you, and certainly not the other parent.
Although early results are promising, experts caution that meaningful success will depend on proper funding and implementation to truly put children first in practice. Airport food. Well, it feels expensive, and it is expensive for a reason. It is the result of a system built around high operating costs, strict regulations, and a captive audience with limited choices. Vendors face steep rent, security hurdles, and around-the-clock staffing, all of which drive up prices that get passed on to travelers.
So you know how everything in the airport is like wildly more expensive than you pay outside? Most airports have a policy called Street Pricing Plus. That allows businesses to charge 10 to 15% more than the same item costs outside the airport. But the problem is if you look closely, businesses charge more than this, like all the time. Like this chocolate bar from LaGuardia in New York City. It costs $14.49, which is about 120% more than you'd pay at a Duane Reade in Lower Manhattan.
While similar pricing models exist in places like stadiums, the lack of competition inside airports makes the impact more noticeable, sparking growing conversations about fairness and the need for greater oversight. Does anyone else just feel like there's some crazy stuff going on behind the scenes? And I know we say that a lot, and whenever Kim comes on and does her GIA report, she's always like, oh, things are crazy. But especially now, there is something, I can't quite put my hand on it. There's something going on. And that has left Kim and her team extremely busy. We do not have some sound bites for you guys because a new video has not been released between now and last week's episode. However, I do have a statement, and I think this came out a couple days ago, a quick update that she released on Telegram. If you guys aren't already following the UNN and CARE Telegram channel, you may want to do that because occasionally she'll put out some things and say, hey, sorry, can't do a report today. Here's kind of what's going on. So again, this came out a couple days ago. Here's what she said. We are still in the middle of equinox time and desperation is setting in. We have made some major progress, and as we make progress, the deep state panics. We finally figured out why new moons and full moons mean so much to them, as well as dominion and domains to add to the long list of empires and territories, which are things of the past. Hopefully, there will be less backlash after today. I worked most all of last night. Again, this is Kim speaking, and we'll have the next report out as soon as possible. It's going to be very interesting and informative. So, we are on the edge of our seats. We will wait and see what Kim has to say. I don't have any inside information on that, but I'm looking forward to it, just like all of you. All right. I do appreciate you guys hanging there with us today and for being with us on this episode of The Rundown. Remember, you can go to our website at unitednetwork.earth. You can become a member if you're not already. I would encourage you to do that because that gives you instant on-demand access to all of our content. That's all the news reports we put out, all of our field messenger reports. We've done reports in the past about the new Earth and what that's going to look like, so you get access to all of that, all of our GIA reports with Kim, and all things restoration. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.